Alright guys, so I've been wanting one of these for a while. This is a quick coupler for this machine. This has got 70mm bores. It's meant for like a Cat 315. I think it actually came off a Cat 315 too. This is a manual coupler. I wanted a hydraulic one, but this one was easy to find and it was not too far from me, and it was pretty cheap too. So this machine without a quick coupler, it's really hard to change the bucket. And so I just keep one bucket on here. It would make it a lot more useful if I could change the bucket, and I could also buy more attachments for it. So one obstacle I'm going to run into right off the bat is the fact that this is not really wide enough to accommodate for this H-link right here. For some reason this H-link is like an inch wider here than the stick is right here. This is like 11 1/4 here. This is like 12 1/4 here. So the stick will fit just fine right here. But right here, I need to somehow come up with, I think it's like 3/4 of an inch or something. So one thing I can do, I can get a 1/4 inch on each side just by shaving this flat, grinding it down. But I got to get into it first, because maybe it's easier to just cut this H-link down. I might have to do both, honestly. I'm going to run into that problem no matter what quick coupler I get though, or bucket even, because the Cat 315, which this machine pretty much takes that exact measurement dimensions, they're all going to be the same. The H-link is usually the same as the width of the stick, so I'm going to run into that no matter what I do. So it's not just this quick coupler that the problem is, it's going to be anything that I put on this. So I might as well take care of it now and narrow this up. And you can't really flip this around, because this is obviously, this is shorter here, but it's a totally different design. You know, this goes in the middle and these are on the outside, so you can't flip this like that. So I haven't found one that's less than like 2,500 bucks, so I'm not going to pay $2,500 for this little piece right here. And a couple hours of grinding and cutting and stuff, and I'm sure I can get it. So that's the dilemma that I have right there. You can see it's not a whole lot that I need to trim, but this is pretty thick steel. This is about 1 inch thick right here. That's 1 inch thick there. There's not really a great way to do this. Just a lot of grunt work. This has got bushings that go about 3 inches in. So if I need to cut a 1/2 inch off of both sides on that bushing, that doesn't really matter. So in other words, the pin only catches on about this much. This is a bigger diameter because there's no bushing in there, so it doesn't catch on that. So it's only catching on this much. So if I eliminate that and this much catches, it's not a big deal. I was really hoping that I could just do one or the other, either shave these down or shave this down, but it kind of looks like I need to do both, which is unfortunate because it's a lot of work. If this part of it was in just a little bit more, then I could just shave these down and just leave this alone, which is what I was hoping for, but there's not a lot that you can take off of this. It doesn't even look like that much on camera, but it is. Because I can only get about 1/4 inch there, 1/4 inch there, and even that's cutting into these welds here. I guess there is another option, and it depends on my plasma cutter and if it'll cut it, but I could cut this here and then just move that out, re-weld it. Just follow this contour down, just cut this right out, just bring it out and re-weld it. I don't know though, I'm kind of liking that idea the more I think of it. As long as my plasma cutter will do it. That's only 3/4 steel right there. So I'm pretty sure my plasma cutter's not going to like it, but it'll do it. I don't know, I'm going to think about it for a little bit. I guess the one problem I see with doing that is the fact that once I cut these bores aren't going to be exactly true like they were before. Well, I'm assuming they are anyways. And I guess the way I could remedy that is cutting them out, putting the pin through, and then welding them. I guess that should keep them somewhat straight. That really was no effort for that plasma cutter. That was probably less than 5 minutes anyways. You know, it's funny how you plan something out for months. I've had this quick coupler for a while now, and even before that I knew I had to do something with this H-link. And I've been planning it out for months, if not even years. And then all of a sudden when you go to do it, things change. But it is what it is. I thought this video was going to be mostly about cutting and grinding away on that. And this. That's all I need right there. There's my 1/2 inch. I'm liking that. I think that's perfect right where it's at. I got these clamps just to hold it right in place. Just because it wanted to like slide down just a little bit. I like the gap in there though. Leave a little bit of gap like that, it lets the weld heat up a little bit better. I kind of feel like it's right to bevel both this piece and the coupler on both sides all the way around on everything. But being that they're offset, they're not flush together, so it kind of creates a bevel. I think I'm gonna just go with it. I don't think I need to spend an hour beveling everything. I think I'm gonna tack this into place, see if it works. Well, you can see the pin's not jammed up. It's able to move. So it must be somewhat straight going through there. I think I just need to take the pin out, get that H-link out of the way, and just weld the crap out of this. I use a stick welder with 7018. I know a lot of people won't like to hear this, but I could use the MIG welder too. That MIG welder would flux core. You get twice the penetration that you do with gas. I could even add gas to it if I want. In the interest of keeping this as strong as possible though, I'm probably just going to stick weld it. It's getting late today though, I'll do that tomorrow. But you can see I got a lot of room to lay a huge bead in there, both on the outside and on the inside. It leaves like a shelf there. I can lay some serious beads in there. I got it perfectly evenly spaced too. I got just 1/4 of an inch that I'm holding on there, and it leaves a 1/2 inch there. Same thing here, 1/2 inch there. Same thing on the top, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. The only slight issue I'm seeing with this coupler is the fact that it's hitting this bracket right here for the old thumb on this machine, which I never had on it. I wasn't going to tell you guys this right this second, but I do have a thumb for this already. So that'll be in the next video, and we'll take that off. But right now, it curls up most of the way anyways. But I got a pin-on thumb, so that doesn't need to be there. got that all welded up. I used at least a half a pack of sticks, but it's all welded now. But I'm confident that that's not gonna have any problems. So let's go try this out. The unfortunate thing is, and I knew this from the beginning, but this bucket's not gonna work with this coupler. Not the way it is. I gotta redo these ears here. The space between them is not enough. It's like 17.5 inches, and I need 18.5 inches between them, from center to center, or left to left, right to right, whatever. So I did know that before I even got this coupler. But here's the plan. This coupler is for a Cat 315. So all I need to do is get a bucket for a Cat 315. This bucket here is for like a 200 size machine. So it's quite a bit bigger than it needs to be. And it's quite a bit heavier. And so therefore I can pick up less weight. So here's the plan. I'm gonna get another Cat 315 bucket. I got one that I'm gonna go hopefully pick up tonight. It's gonna need some work, but if I wanna make this work, I can. I just need to cut off these ears and space them out just a little bit more. It's just this ear that I would need to cut off. I can leave that one there and just cut the one for the H-link off and just move it out a little bit. I could do that, but ultimately what's gonna happen is I'm adding like 600 pounds by putting that coupler on. So I'm also adding another 1,100 pounds from putting the thumb that I got on. It's a very heavy duty thumb. So I'm trying to shave some weight off because I'm adding a lot of weight. I'm already adding 600 pounds with this. I need to add another 1,100 pounds from the thumb. I can take off this whole assembly here and this whole thing, because up here all that there's going to be is something similar to this. So that should shave a couple 100 pounds off of there, but that's not enough really. So I'm going to get a smaller bucket, the bucket that's supposed to be on this machine, and that should shave off quite a bit more. I'm still going to be a little bit heavier than I was without a thumb and without a coupler, but it should sort of equalize out in the end. Hopefully I'm only about 500 pounds over what I was before by the time I get the thumb on and the quick coupler and everything, because I don't really want to reduce the capacity of this machine by a lot. And if I kept this bucket on here with the thumb and the coupler, it's just going to reduce my capacity a lot. So I'm thinking I could shave off, we'll see, because I got a crane scale, so we're going to find out, but I think I could shave 500 or 600 pounds off this bucket by putting the smaller bucket on. So that'll get me closer to where I want to be. This is a 1 yard bucket. The bucket that I'm getting tonight is like a 3/4 yard bucket. I'm not worried about that though, because heaped up I can still get a yard in the bucket. I just don't want my capacity reduced, and that's kind of one of the trade-offs you have with having a thumb, especially a nice heavy duty one. And then also the quick coupler too. The nice thing is, because I'm going with the manual quick coupler, it is quite a bit lighter than a hydraulic quick coupler. And the hydraulic one is nice, but this one was a lot cheaper and a lot lighter. And I paid $600 for this. So if anybody has researched quick couplers for Cat 315, you know, they're like between $3 and $5 grand. So I spent a half a day and modified it, and it should work. So let's go try it out. I got my old bucket that's a 24-inch bucket, and that one should fit right on here because that's for a Cat 315. So we'll go try that one out. So this is what they call a pin grabber coupler, and basically what you do is you take another bucket and you just put pins on it and you leave the pins on it, and then you just grab the pins. And what's nice about that is you can reverse the bucket so that you can kind of dig backwards, which is nice for like backfilling a foundation if you have a nice big grading bucket, because you can kind of go over with the arm and just drop off the gravel into the foundation. Anybody who's ever tried to use a regular excavator with no quick coupler that you can reverse like a pin grabber, you know that when you get to the foundation, your bucket hits the foundation before you can actually drop the gravel off. So then you end up with the gravel like 3-4 feet out from the foundation, then you got to rake it in because the back of the bucket hits the foundation. Well, with this, if you can turn it around, you can scoop it right into it, no problem. Plus you can also dig a bank out like that too.
Wait, so how do you use a quick coupler? You use this bucket. No, I'm confused. Well, you use this bucket. Yeah. But it's not working. It's not working. Wait, how can he even lift that? Coming in with the hammer. Yeah.
All right, no, you got to get back.
We know that. Ha ha ha.
So this piece has to flip up to hold the pin in there, but I got a little bit of steel in the way, so I'm gonna have to cut that out. I'll just cut a little groove out of there. I guess I have to do it on both sides, otherwise this isn't gonna work. But that's no big deal. Just cut a little bit out with a plasma cutter. So I got to cut a little bit more out on this side because the head of the pin has a big flat piece of steel on it. It's got to go through there. This other side I can cut out a little bit smaller. This is 1-inch steel, but I'm into these welds here too, so it's probably more like 1.25 inches, almost 1.5 inches. So hopefully this plasma cutter will do that. you can see it did it, but it didn't like it. I think my plasma cutter is mad at me now. Works really good. There's a little bit of a clankety clank clank in it, but it's kind of to be expected. See, there's that little bit of play in there. All I really need to do is put a nice heavy bead, a weld right on here on both sides. I'll tighten that right up, but I don't want to do that yet until I get the other bucket, because I want to make sure that I'm not making it too tight for the other bucket, because the other bucket's the important one. This one I might use once in a while for trenching or something, but the other one's the one that's going to be on there 90% of the time, so I don't want to weld it yet until I get that other bucket. So like I said, I can't curl all the way in because of this piece being here, so I'm just going to take the plasma cutter and gouge out these welds. There's really only this right here, this right here, and this right here. Actually, no, there's these right here too. But you can use the plasma cutter to gouge these out. You just gotta put it at an angle where it pushes the stuff out. And in this case, since gravity's this way, I'll hit it like this. And as I'm hitting it, all the stuff will come out here. So you can see that took that weld out pretty good, really quick too. Less than a minute I had that whole thing done. And now there's some slag on there, but that's not holding anything. I like to start from the bottom and let everything drip off. Otherwise, if you start from the top, a lot of it sprays back at you. But if you start at the bottom, it kind of drops first, and then as you go up, it doesn't spray on you. So that little bit gave it a lot more curl. I suppose it looks like it should have a little bit more curl, but this H-link right here is not allowing it to do that anyways. But if you look at the bucket, if the bucket was on here instead of this coupler, there'd actually be, there's more room between here than there is right here. Not by much, but there's a little bit. So if the coupler wasn't on here, it would still be the same. So the coupler, so I'm not losing any curl because of the coupler, which is really what I was hoping for. And I didn't know that until I put it on. And I was just hoping for the best. So the whole purpose of me getting that bucket was because it was supposed to be lighter than the other bucket, that one. But looking at it compared to the other one, it actually looks like it's comparable in weight. So I'm gonna take my crane scale and we're gonna find out. Alright, so I honestly can't remember how to get it back to pounds instead of kilograms, but we'll just try it out with kilograms and convert it. So 780 kilograms, that's 1,700 pounds. I guess that's kind of an epic fail. This one's 670. So that's like 1,470 pounds. So I guess the whole idea of me getting a smaller bucket didn't happen. The only thing nice about this bucket is it'll just fit right on there. That's it. So I think I'm back to modifying this bucket so that it'll work. So I just paid $1,000 for that bucket. So kind of thinking right off the bat, maybe I'll just cut off all the teeth and make a grading bucket out of it. Because it is quite a bit wider. This is like 42 inches, whereas that's like 35 inches. So if I just cut off behind these, that'll make it shorter. Fix those holes in it. Just put a regular cutting edge on it. Make it a grading bucket. That's about all I can do with it. You know, in the pictures it looked a lot smaller, and it's for a Cat 315. I didn't realize how light this other bucket was. Look at the difference in the size of the teeth. These shanks here are like 4 inches wide. Compared to these, it's like maybe 2.5 inches. So I think there's a lot of weight just in that. And then on the back here, there's like these massive pieces of steel that they welded on here. It's like 1 inch thick, 4 inches, almost 5 inches wide. I think that's the original piece that was in there, and then they welded on another piece there. That's just a massive amount of steel that's like unnecessary for a grading bucket anyways. I think this bucket is pretty worn out. I think that was a bad decision to get that bucket, but I gotta make the best of it now. I don't think anybody's gonna want to buy that from me. I'd be happy to get my money back, even though I spent over a half a day driving to go get it. So I guess it's back to that bucket. I'll have to cut these ears for the H-link here. I don't dare cut these ones. These are the ears that see the most stress, because you got the sideways stress all the time. This one only has stress going up and down, so it makes sense to cut these and extend them out to where they need to be, and then re-weld it, versus cutting these. That's back to cutting 1 inch steel. Like I said, my plasma cutter doesn't really like that, but it is what it is. I do like this bucket though, because it's nice and deep. It's a 1 yard bucket, and these, like, I guess you could call these cutting edges on the side here, the side plates, those are 1 inch thick. And for picking up logs and stuff, I imagine that's going to be really useful, because it'll bite right onto the logs. When the thumb comes down, the thumb has teeth like that too, so it'll really grip the logs. Which, I have quite a few big logging jobs coming up with this excavator, land clearing jobs, so I'm going to be moving a lot of big trees. But I almost thought that this bucket would be better to move trees with, because it's a lot lighter, so you should be able to pick up a lot more. But then again, logs don't weigh that much, so I guess that one's fine. Alright, so since I can't do the work on this bucket to make it work right now, this will be in a different video. I'll make a grading bucket out of it. I need this bucket to work, actually. I need one of them to work, and I need one of them with teeth on them. So since I did all this work to this, where I put these new shanks on, put these new teeth on, put these bushings in here, I'm gonna make this one work. So I guess what I'm gonna do is cut this with the plasma cutter and extend it out. I think it's 1.25 inches, and then weld it back together. That way I have something to use now, and then we'll get to that later. So since we're going to be putting this plate flush to this other plate, I'm going to bevel what's left of these ears so that I get a nice deep weld on that. Same thing with this piece when I put it back. I'm going to bevel this, and to make quick work out of that, I'm just going to do it on the plasma cutter. Because you could be grinding for hours on that just to get that bevel on there, but plasma cutter makes quick work out of it, and I'll just clean it up with a grinder. Something like right there. Yep, I got it. It's right there. All right, try letting that go. All right.
Is that good?
Yeah. All right, so that's all tack welded in on the outside. Anyway, I can't really get to the inside. But I'm gonna take this quick coupler off of here, tack weld the inside, then I'm gonna put it back on there and make sure that pin is still free, because the one thing I was worried about is that pin getting jammed up in there, because as you're welding, this ear could twist just a little bit and jam that pin up in there. And it doesn't really matter, because as long as the pin is in there, if I ever had to replace the pin, I guess I would need to drive it out, but it's not like the pin needs to move. So the one thing that I was worried about was, remember before I was talking about that little bit of slop that was in the other one? I wanted to make sure I had the same amount of slop in this bucket as that one. That way, on this little part right here, see that little 1/4 inch gap there? If I run a weld right up along that on this piece here, it'll tighten that right up. And what I didn't want to do was have this one tight, and then I can't put that bead on there, because then this bucket wouldn't work. So I wanted to have the same gap there as it is on that bucket there, so that way I can put the bead on there and it tightens it up for both of them. So that kind of complicated everything, but the way I have everything right now, also I wanted to make sure that this was centered between here, because I haven't shimmed that out yet. So I wanted to make sure, because otherwise if this isn't centered, then the back isn't centered and it could be like twisted. So right now, the way that the bucket's sitting, it's just putting enough pressure upward on it where it keeps that pin right back into place back here. It's nice and tight there, and then I also have it centered left and right. I got little pieces of steel in there just holding it, just so it's not twisting everything, because that was another problem I was having. Everything was getting twisted because this pin wasn't falling back into place. Because the more you put the bucket like this, where that pin falls back into place, the more pressure you got to put down back here, which meant that I couldn't put the spacer in here. Now, one thing I noticed, I could have got away with not putting the spacer in here, and this thing would have just slid down, and the top of it would have been like right here. And that would have worked, but the problem is it creates less curl by doing that. So I didn't need that spacer in there, but I would have had a little bit less curl. It probably wouldn't have been a crazy amount, but I had already had those pieces cut, so I figured let's put them in. It probably would have been a little bit stronger if I didn't have to have that piece in there, but at the same time, I think it's totally fine. Like I said, the only stress that's on that part is the H-link, which is just pushing down and pulling up. This is the one that needs all the strength, because the bucket's, you know, going left and right all the time and stuff, and that's where, you know, the bucket can kind of put a lot of force going like this on it, whereas that one, it's only up and down. So just the fact that this pin slides by hand like that, you know that nothing's binding up in there. And even if it did bind up a little bit, as long as that pin's there, sliding it in and out doesn't really matter. It could bind up a little bit and still be fine. I just didn't want this pin to be like cocked a little bit that way or cocked a little bit that way or something. You can see it's straight on to where it was before. And I didn't even really have to do anything to do that. I just aligned it left and right, and I let the pin and the quick coupler align it like this. So that filler piece in there is beveled a lot, and then everything else is beveled, so there's a lot of room to put some thick welds in there. Lots of passes. There'll be some deep penetration on those welds. So it's probably going to take me a few hours to burn this all in, but it'll be worth it. But first I'm going to put a few tack welds on the inside, recheck it with the quick coupler, and then take it back off and just burn it all in hot. So I ended up making 3 passes on each part. So 3 passes here, 3 passes here, 3 passes here, 3 passes here. Same thing on that side. So I guess 24 passes altogether. It's not the prettiest, but stick welder, I don't know. I don't think you can really get it that pretty. I could do a lot better with a MIG welder, but I know it'll hold up. That's 7018. So every time I make a pass on these sides, that pin would lock up, and then I'd flip the bucket over, make a pass on the other sides, let that cool down, and then the pin would drop right out. And then I'd have to put it back in, flip it to the other side, weld it up again, then it's locked up again, flip it over back again, and then it slides out again. So right now it doesn't really slide out, but it's not fully cooled off, so hopefully it doesn't matter if it doesn't slide out. I'm okay with that. I can always ream it out a little bit. And for every pass that I made, it was 3 sticks. So do the math, that's 72 sticks that I used just for that. Alright, so the last thing I want to do to this quick coupler is tighten things up, because right now so I can't make it perfect, because then you'll never get the pin in. That's one of the advantages of having a hydraulic quick coupler, because the hydraulics push against it and tighten things up so that it's 100% tight. But if you did that on this, then this pin would have a really hard time going in. So I need to leave a little bit of play in there, but that's just too excessive right now. I need to put a nice big thick bead on here to take up some of that slop. So I think what I'm going to do is use a 6011 rod. It's a little bit softer of a material. That way it doesn't beat up on the pin so much. Because I don't want those pins wearing out crazy fast. I think 7018 is just a little bit harder of a weld. So we use a 6011. Alright, so I got all that slop taken up in the quick coupler. So I'll show you it moving and you'll see that it's only up here that there's any kind of slop at all. So you could see all that slop was up there between the cylinder and those few pins, but no slop between the coupler and the bucket, which is exactly what I was aiming for. So this is a project that I'm gonna do in a few weeks, but I was just kind of starting it now, I guess, just to test this quick coupler out and the bucket and everything. I got a bank here, and I got a culvert pipe there and a culvert pipe there. I got a pond there. Right now both of these culvert pipes go into the pond, but at times it's too much, so I'm trying to make one culvert pipe flow around the property and to my back pond, so that only one culvert pipe flows into this pond and the other one's diverted away. So I got a bunch of cutting this bank to do, and then I got to dig a stream around. But anyways, that's a different project. I was just testing this out, and it works really well. I don't see any problems. It actually gives the machine like another foot of reach, which is good in one sense, but here's the bad thing. When you bring it up to the cab, now you can hit this glass. So that's not a great thing, but I just got to be careful. So before, you'd come up to this cab and you were just a few inches away from it, but you could never touch this cab. But now that that's extended a little bit with that quick coupler, now you can. So I really got to be careful, because that would be a horrible thing, because you just touch that glass there and it's just gonna shatter. I mean, I'm sure it's tempered, but I'm just saying it's not gonna be easy to find another piece of glass like that. I don't think so anyways. Let me know if you guys know of a place where I can get glass like that. It says Volvo on it, so maybe I can get it from Volvo. But I'm just trying to think ahead just in case, because I know a regular glass place probably isn't going to be able to do that. I guess I could always do like plexiglass or something, but there's really not a reason to have the bucket near the glass like that, but just in case. It'd be nice to know if it was available, if something happened. And my parts machine up in the field doesn't have that glass, so that's not going to work either. But overall, I'm really excited to use this machine coming up, because I got a bunch of projects coming up for it, and I also got that thumb that I'm going to be putting on probably next week. So that's going to be really exciting to have that, because I've had this machine for I think 3 years now, and I haven't had a thumb, and it definitely needs one. Overall though, I'm just excited in general. An excavator is my favorite machine by far. I just love running excavators, especially bigger ones like this. They're so much smoother than a mini excavator. When I get off of this and get on my mini excavator, I'm all jittery, because it's just different. It like moves a lot quicker. This one's so much smoother. And they're both pilot controls, so that's nothing to do with it. It's just the way it's set up, I guess. A bigger excavator just has smoother controls. A bigger excavator just moves slower, I guess. So you're able to kind of finesse it a little bit better. Plus, I think I get impatient on a small machine too, because you're like trying to dig and nothing's happening. Not compared to this anyways. So one thing I still need to do, and I couldn't do it now because I got to order some parts. I got to shim this out. So you can see there's some space there, some space there, and then we got this space here, and it's slid over this way so you don't have that space. But I got to order a bunch of shims. I'm going to order all different sizes, a whole bunch of them. That way I can shim this out. I'll probably weld the shims onto this one, because otherwise they'll be like flopping all over when you put on and off the bucket. And then these ones just slide in there and they stay in there. And then on the back here, this H-link doesn't really need any shims, but this right here could use some shims. So I guess the quick coupler isn't totally necessary. If your pins move easily, then you can just take the pins out and put another bucket on, but it is nice to have this. I suppose you could also put the bucket on backwards like you can do with this too. I guess I should show you guys that real quick, putting this on backwards. So that's really kind of cool to be able to do that. So you can see how that would be pretty beneficial sometimes, especially backfilling, especially if you had a big grading bucket. And like I said, I'm going to convert that other bucket to a grading bucket. So I think that's it for this video. So we'll work on putting that thumb on next week, and I'll see you guys on that video.